Perhaps if I remember to bring the class plan with me, otherwise I'll be guessing, make it up as we go along. So I'm going to come straight down onto hands and knees, and I'm going to come into child's pose, but I'm actually going to use a block underneath the head. We're going to be here for about 4 minutes. So I want to have the thighs relatively parallel to each other. So I'm basically not a wide leg version. I want to actually rest on the diaphragm onto the thighs. So it might take a little while to ease those in. And as I come down, I'm going to let my head rest. Moving around the glasses. And I'm going to take my hands all the way back to my toes. And then just settle in and breathe. So as ever with these yoga classes, you need to make sure you take care of yourself. Is there any excruciating pain, either moving into or trying to sit into a posture, needs to be avoided. So you can always adapt the posture to your needs, or just skip it out and do something different if that feels more appropriate. So it's particularly important if you've got an injury, especially on one side of your body. You need to be very thoughtful about that. But hopefully, with this style of yoga, yin yoga, everything will be okay. We're not worried too much about alignment. We kind of want to let the body sink in a little bit and just let the muscles and joints find their own place to be, which interestingly might not feel the same on each side of your body when you're in the pose. Something like this, which is, traditionally seen as a balanced posture, because every part of your body is being stretched the same amount at the same time in the same way. So if it does feel different, then there are signs that there are differences in your body. So it might just be tight muscles, old injuries, might be dominant side of the body that you work with. So lots of different factors. In this particular one, you might notice that the rib cage is slightly different on one side of the body to the other, which is normal. And that can make a little bit of difference as you breathe in and out. You might feel the stretch differently. Slightly different places. So we're trying to use this to relax into the pose, but also to keep our mind connected to our body. So an inquiring mind, a listening mind, are good things to take into this practice. If you do find yourself wandering off with your thoughts, notice that and just come back. That's all is called a practice. Now we take a breath from there. Start to bring the hands forward lightly. Press into the floor on the exhale. Let the head lift very gently. Ease the spine back up. And then I'm going to move my block out towards the front of the mat. I'll be using that again pretty soon. I'm going to swing the feet out to the side and plant myself down on my bottom. And we're going to come into butterfly pose. So that requires me to bring the soles of my feet together and in towards my groin. And you can have a little rock from side to side. And then when you're ready, you're going to take a breath and just allow yourself to fold forward. Slowly, you can choose whether you want your arms to be kept inside or outside of your legs. Really on a personal choice. I'm going to try and let the shoulders round away from the ears and let the head drop naturally. So sometimes just letting the chin drop and letting the head drop down can be more of a challenge than we might think it's going to be. The body's very good at protecting itself, and sometimes you just need to do this on a regular basis so your body doesn't go into a little bit of a flutter and panic. The breathing was compromised. The diaphragm was squeezed and compressed. There is room to breathe into the back of the ribs. And let your ribs stretch in perhaps a different way to your normal breath. And I'm going to let ourselves lift up from there. So I usually take my hands forwards and then pressing into the floor to help lift me up. So I look after my spine, take the pressure out of the lift, and then even easier, take my hands around the thighs, press the knees up so I can stretch the legs out in front. So sitting up nice and tall, I'm going to need the block again. I'm going to place that under my bottom and just lift up. I'm going to come into a seated posture, which is called Siddhasana. So not particularly yin, but it is useful. So we cross at the shins and you take your feet out so they're directly underneath your knees. So as you look down, if your feet are sort of much closer in, then you just need to wiggle them out. And you want to try and have the front shin follow the line of the mat. So as you can sort of compare the two, you can see where you're going to go. So this gives us a greater degree of external rotation in the thighs. We already had that a little bit in the butterfly pose. Let's sit up nice and tall. So I'm just going to let the hands rest gently on top of the knees. And then whilst I'm here to amuse myself more, some neck stretches. So I'm going to let the chin come in towards the chest. And then I'm going to slowly take it out towards the left, looking towards the wall. I'll let my eyes climb the wall to the ceiling. Gently let that go across without letting the head drop too far. So I'm only looking towards the ceiling, not directly up at it. And across to the opposite wall and down to the floor and back in towards the center. And then having worked out I can do that one way, go the opposite way. And I just really want the muscles to slide and glide. So, with the practice of yin, just taking yourself from side to side, Just repeating through. I was about to say the practice of yin, we are looking to open joints and work on connective tissue. So we tend to think of connective tissue as tendons and ligaments, but you could consider fascia connective tissue as well. And sometimes you need to sort of just stretch motionlessly. And other times you need to wiggle it around a little bit. But again, just slowly with control. I'm going to come round chin to chest for the final time, and then let the head slowly lift up. And I'm going to stretch the legs out briefly, and then change that sitting position by bringing the heels into the groin and spin them down onto the floor, so into that sort of wider stance, seated Sukhasana. Again, sitting up nice and tall. And this time we're just going to roll the shoulders around. Nice big juicy circles. See where we get to. Again, nice and slow. Able to get a little bit of a squeeze into the shoulder blades as they go back. And a little bit of a opening into the front of the shoulders and chest. Take a last stretch of the shoulders round and release. We're going to untangle the legs, take them out in front. Actually, they come into saddle posture. So I'm going to use my block, moving it to portrait, and put that down towards my ankles and bring my knees together, and then the feet out a little wider so I can sit back gently onto my sitting bones. Now, if that isn't possible for you because the knees are a bit tight, calves are very stubborn, then place the brick on top of the block so that it's under both sitting bones rather than going through your coccyx. And just use the benefit of that sort of slightly higher setting. Hopefully you've settled in. We'll take a little breath. I'm going to float the arms out nice and wide. And I'm simply going to bring left arm over, right arm over the top, bend at the elbows. Try and take hold of the palms or the thumb. And I'm actually going to let the elbows drop in towards the chest. So it is going to stretch because we're going to be here for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to breathe into it. Yeah, absolutely. If I kept the elbows raised parallel in line with my shoulders, the stretch would be felt very much quicker, but I'd be stretching the muscles and feeling sort of lactic burn. Whereas here, I'm just trying to sort of stretch the tendons at the end of those shoulder muscles and across the rhomboids as well. Now I'm going to release the arms, slowly take them out, cross them over the opposite way, and then drop the elbows again. Release the arms again. Let's just take the fingers to the floor to ease myself back up. I'm going to move the block out to the side, taking it to the right side in my case. Stretch the legs out once on one side, stretch the legs out once on the other side, and then I'm going to sit back down onto the heels and have the thighs close together this time. Now again, if your knees are a little bit tight, you just take the block and put that underneath your bottom. We'll interlace the fingers and slowly on the exhale, stretch the hands out in front of the chest. Letting the spine round a little bit as the shoulders stretch out, and then we inhale up and see if we can get the hands directly above the shoulders on the exhale. And then we're just going to see if we can leave them there, hanging from the ceiling. Noticing how that changes the feeling of gravity in the spine and the muscles along your back and through your shoulders. Now, the top of your shoulders, the deltoids, as they're known, will sing a little bit. They'll sing their song, and you'll definitely be able to hear it. But again, we're not staying here for too long. Just trying to draw the hands up over the head towards the back of the mat without getting super aggressive. So I can feel muscles opening and joints being able to stretch a little bit. I'm going to let the hands come down. And I'm going to place the hands on top of the sides and then lean back a little bit, just enough so that the knees fractionally lift from the floor. Now, if you feel completely unsteady, then do take your hands behind you and just have your fingertips on the floor to steady yourself. Getting some good quality stretching into those ankles and into the feet. You don't need much of a gap, just enough to know that your knees and your shins are off of the floor. Bring myself back up. Let's move the block a little closer so it's easy to grab hold of. Come up onto all fours. Stretch the legs out and the ankles. Say hello. And then I'm going to come into a squat. So again, we can use the block, and we could also use, if we needed it, the brick as well. So again, it's just going to depend on how tight your ankle tendons are. So taking the block behind, I just put it behind my toes, then lean forwards. If you tuck the toes underneath, take my feet out about as wide as the block, and then I'm simply going to roll back, feed the fingers in, I lift the knees, I let the feet roll out to the side edges, and I have the feet on the corner edges of the block. The knees are nice and wide open and sitting into that squat. And you can keep the fingertips on the floor, or if you feel comfortable enough, you can lift up a little more and rest your arms on top of your knees. Now, if you find squatting very painful and you don't feel comfortable at all, and your sort of back tightens up and you can't breathe easily, you know, the whole thing is just very tight, then do use the brick and put it underneath your bottom, again, underneath your sitting bones, and then just let yourself bring your bottom down, and it will give you the opportunity to open your knee joints and your ankles without turning yourself from a sort of a relaxed state to a more of a fright and flight state, which is what happens when you try and push yourself a little bit more than your body's happy to do. But sometimes our mind can be a little bit over competitive, and it thinks it knows best. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. That makes it really complicated to know what's going on. We'll be here just for about another 20 seconds or so. It's not a long held spot. Okay, going to come out of there just by taking my hands behind, getting actually on the block. Obviously, if you've got a brick there, you have to move that out and wiggle around a little bit. And then I'm going to come back down to the floor. So I'm going to come forwards enough for my head to be on the block. You could do that head flat to the floor. It's your personal choice at this point. If you feel that it's easier for your spine to get really nice and flat with the head lifted, then take that. It doesn't have to be a block, it could be a cushion. If you feel your back feels flattened, your shoulders feel better positioned, your neck feels happier with your head down on the floor, that's fine as well. Now bring the feet in towards your bottom and very close to the center line, knees together. And I'm going to take the arms out wide. I'm going to lift the left leg up, cross the thigh over, and then drop the foot down. So hopefully now I've got one thigh on top of the other. And if possible, I'm going to see if I can wriggle my foot around the calf. Oops, the opposite leg. Ease that in. That does change the position of my legs, but I want to make sure that my lower back hasn't lifted off the ground. And since it's my left leg that crossed over, I'm going to bring my left arm over and the right arm over the top. And then just allow the elbows to come to the chest and the hands in towards the forehead. So it's supine eagle pose, but it's a very sort of relaxed version of that. I want to try and be soft across the shoulders. I want to have the back flat on the floor. And if you're not able to hook your foot around your calf, then just squeeze your thighs together as best you can. And I'm finding this, but the stretchy feelings move from one part of your body to another as you start to sort of mellow into the posture. Another half a minute. Release, untangle the legs, bring the feet back in a little bit closer as I stretch that left leg out to the sky. And let that foot come down. Little wriggle through the hips. Walk the feet in nice and close onto the center line. Right leg goes up, crosses over the thigh. Foot drops down out to the outside, so the thighs want to be as close as together. So there's really only a finished piece of paper able to get through your thighs. And then again, if you can do just using your foot around the back of your calf. Now I can do that on one side. Can't do it on the opposite side. I can do it if I've done a really long vinyasa and warm my body up for about an hour and a half. And it shows the difference of warm body and a cold body state. This time the right arm comes across, the left arm over the top. And then I go bend once. Then those come into my chest. Dropping the hands just onto the forehead gently. Let's squeeze the thighs just a little bit. And then we'll release from there. Get the arms out, untangle the legs, stretch them out. And then I am going to need to move the block out to the side. So I do want my head to the ground on this one. And this banana pose, I always do quite regularly. I'll just interlace the hands lightly and raise them above the chest. And then I'll lengthen the legs out. Have a little wriggle through the whole of your body to sort of loosen it out a little bit. And then on the exhale, just gently letting the hands sink out to the back of the mat and down to the floor. And then once I've reached, I'm going to wriggle the shoulders into the side bend over to the left as far as you comfortably can, keeping the shoulders flat to the ground. So if they're rolling off and up, you've gone a little further than you need. Same, then moving the feet over to the left side with the hips. And I would wait about 30 seconds or so, or a good 5 long breaths. And then if you want to, you can cross the ankles over. Now, if that pulls too much down the side of your body or pinches into your lower back, then I would suggest moving out. There's a likelihood that it's your sciatic nerve that's being pinched. And you don't want to really sit there for a long time squeezing on top of that, because you'll be feeling it for days otherwise. I'll turn the head gently a little to the left as well. I'm going to slowly bring the legs back towards the center line. And start to wiggle the shoulders back in. So you've got to feel centered. And then I'm going to take it out to the right side. And then the same with the legs. Make sure you stay flat to the floor. You don't roll onto one shoulder blade or one hip. We'll come back gently to the center. Easy arms outside of the body. Now I need to find the brick because I'm going to come into bridge pose. So I'm going to take the brick with the sort of 4-inch wide setting between the sides, and then try to approximate the center of my heels or underneath the center of my knees. And I want the feet underneath the knees as well. A little wriggle through the shoulders. Take a breath, hands down the side, and then slowly curl the spine away from the floor and lift up. Make this a little easier to hold high. Going to roll the shoulders underneath, bring the hands under the body, and just slightly interlace the fingers so compress the arms down and sort of pair into the floor. And that slightly tighter shoulder arrangement makes it a little easier to maintain this for a longer time. So what I'm feeling at the moment that both legs are working pretty much the same. I'm going to do my best to keep my hips the same height. So as the duration extends, fatigue brings itself in. And I want to keep ourselves lifting as high as we can without sort of overstretching. That might not be the world's highest bridge pose you've ever done, but hopefully it's one that you can maintain. Take the breath from here and ease the hands out from underneath and roll the spine gently down to the floor. Going to move the brick now onto the sort of the 2-inch setting. Let the arms come out wide. You're going to move the hips over towards the left side and then let the legs roll over to the right. Let's see if I can get the bottom leg all the way to the floor, but I'm going to try and keep the brick between the thighs. Just let them sit now. I'll turn the head the opposite way. Inhale up and move the hips over the opposite side. Let the legs go down. Bring the legs back up and move the brick off to the side. And take it out to the left. And I'll just ease the knees in towards the body. Let the hands slide around the shins and rock to the ribs from side to side. And then when you're ready, you're going to roll completely over to the right side. Turn the chest over, hands underneath, rest away from the floor back up. I haven't done that. Stretch the legs out a little bit. I'm going to take the feet towards the back of the mat and preemptively bring the bolster towards the front of the mat, close within range, and to be in tabletop with the knees together, and I'm going to come into pigeon pose. So I'm going to take my left knee to the outside of the left wrist, heel underneath the groin, and I'm going to walk rear foot back as I can. I have the hands underneath the shoulders. So sometimes the shoulders sort of round forward, so I want to sort of draw them back a little bit, but then still let the body sort of sink into the shoulders. Now, if your wrists don't get happy when they're sort of leant on for long periods of time, just bring the bolster across the mat in front of you and then come down onto your elbows. Likewise, doing that if you feel that the pinch in your lower back is starting to get a little bit too toasty and warm. You want to have a little bit of compression back there and in the knees, and stretching out the other associated muscles in between the hips and the knee. But it shouldn't feel treacherous. Like it could be a dangerous thing to do. It should feel happy, healthy kind of stretch. Now, if you do find yourself sort of rolling off to the side excessively, just take the hand out to the side, which you're leaning into. So you sort of brace yourself so you don't roll completely over to the side. There is a version of pigeon pose that you can do where you take in my case, the left buttock all the way out to the side and to the floor. That stretches the groins and the knees in a different way. I'm quite happy with this version for this evening. Notice as the time moves by, your shoulders do lift up towards your ears, so just let them. That's where your body's sort of sinking into the range of motion you have. It will change the feeling of your pigeon pose. As with our third postures, we'd be trying to do everything we could for that not to happen. In practice, we go the opposite way a little bit. I'm about to ready to move out of this, so I'm just going to start to tuck the toe on the back foot and walk that in, and that will slowly lift my hips back up, and then untangle that left leg, stretching out a little bit, come back into tabletop, knees together. And this occasion, I take the right knee to the outside of the right wrist, as far forward as I can, in under the groin, put a centre line on the mat, so that makes it incredibly easy. And then just walk in that rear leg back as far as you comfortably can. Again, we'll just let ourselves hang. We'll just make yourself a little bit of a stretch, widening the shoulders out away from the ears, and then just let yourself sink in slowly. I find myself yawning in pose this evening, which is unusual for me. I must be relaxing very well. And I'm going to start to lift from there as well. Stretching the legs back out. We're going to come into a pose that looks very similar to the butterfly pose that we did earlier on, but it's not. It's a slightly different version. And I'm going to sit up nice and tall on my block and just have the soles of my feet together and wriggle a little bit. And then I'm going to take the hands around the ankles and bring the heel in towards the groin, sitting upright. I'm just going to hold very loosely onto the shin ankle side of the foot. Soles of the feet touching, and try and let the legs relax out. Got the hiccups now. It's a bit of an evening I'm having here. Let's take the hands around the thighs again, lifting up. So I can move off of a block. I'm going to use that for my head, so the back of the mat. And I'm going to use the bolster underneath the back of the thighs. So not really underneath the knees, more the thigh. So walk the bolster in a little bit more towards you. Let the feet go wide and the heels need to be on the floor. And toes just resting out to the side, hands alongside the body as we move into Shavasana. Again, you could use the choose not to have the block. It's one of those, does my neck feel better with or without? Preference for me would be without in my body, but I then need to check the block periodically and I end up pulling my neck muscles if I'm not careful. So this just affords me more convenient place to sit, even though it might not be as restorative as it could be. Again, just make your choices, be aware of the effect those choices have on your body. Sometimes just change it around from one to the other just for the sake of it to see how it feels. And try and loosen the jaw. Now I just start very gently, letting ourselves relax into the mat. Now begin to wriggle the fingers and toes and breathe a little deeper. And you really start to roll your wrists and your ankles. And you become a lot more aware of your body on the mat and where you are. And then again, when you feel ready, allow yourself to stretch out in any way that feels good to you. Just following your instincts for stretch. And then if you haven't already, we're going to start to walk the heels in towards us and roll the heels over the bolster, and then use your feet to push that away towards the front of the mat. So, and you can bring the heels back in, and we'll let the knees come in towards the body as we swoop the arms out to the side, and then hands gently onto the shins. Rock a little from side to side. Take a breath. And then roll out to the side on the right. Turn the chest over, bring the hands under. Ease away from the floor. And up to sitting. Easy posture of choice. And the hands into heart. Longer breath here. Closing the eyes. And slowly beginning to exhale, letting the chin drop. Bringing the belly drawn to the spine. Simply follow that bow to the floor, just in your practice. Inhale, letting the spine build up. And the head lift, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again soon on the mat.